In today's training, we will be covering communicating with stakeholders. This is task list item F3. There will be questions throughout this training, so please make sure that you have your homework sheet out and ready to be filled in. Following this training, there will be a brief quiz. This training program is based on the RBT task list and is designed to meet the 40-hour training requirement for RBT certification. The program is offered independent of the BACB. Now we will go over the agenda for the training. First, we will define what a stakeholder is. Second, we will identify who are considered stakeholders. Third, we will discuss the interests of the stakeholders to the treatment we are providing. Fourth, we will go over limits to communicating with stakeholders. Fifth, we will watch scenarios and cover what went right and wrong. And finally, this training will conclude with a list of references. So what is a stakeholder? A stakeholder is either an individual, group, or organization who is impacted by the outcome of the project. They also have an interest in the success of the project. As an RBT, this is anyone who can be impacted by the behavior analytics services that are being provided. These people will have a direct interest in seeing the success of the client and the success of each individual intervention. So, who are these stakeholders? Stakeholders most often are the parents of the client that we are providing services to. However, not all of our clients may have parents that are providing for them. In this case, caregivers would be considered a stakeholder. This could include grandparents, foster families, other family members, home health aides, or anyone else who cares for the client. Siblings are also included in stakeholders as the services that we are providing most often indirectly affect them. Lastly, the company would be considered a stakeholder since they have a financial interest in the client's success with intervention, as would any relevant insurance provider. Now we'll move on to the topic of interests of stakeholders. Parents and/or caregivers have both a personal and financial interest in the success of interventions. Clearly, the client's success is a priority for them. They want to see the child that they care for succeed and become as independent as possible. By increasing the client's independence, that clearly means that their dependence or reliance on their parent or caregiver is reduced, which is a huge benefit for the parents and caregivers as stakeholders. Going off of that, they are spending the majority of the time with the clients. You, as an RBT, may spend at most 40 hours per week with the clients. The parents and caregivers are the people who are spending the remaining hours of the week with the client. By increasing skills and decreasing problem behaviors, you're making life that much easier for those who do spend the majority of their time with the clients. They may also be implementing procedures at times when services are not being provided. Parents and caregivers are also spending a lot of money for ABA services. A recent study estimates the average cost for ABA therapy for a child diagnosed with autism is $60,000 per year, from when he or she is diagnosed, which is typically at age 3, until entering school at age 6 or 7. So the total cost for those 4 years of treatment is $240,000. Additionally, children diagnosed with autism will incur further costs. 40% more visits to a pediatrician than children not diagnosed with autism. There are 7 times more psychiatric visits for children diagnosed more than 4 years old, 13 times more psychiatric visits for children 2 to 4 years old, 12 times more psychiatric inpatient hospital days, and 40% higher medication costs than children not diagnosed with autism. The increasing costs of autism include more than direct costs. So autism also has an impact on the families. 50% report the need to reduce or stop work. 33% report experiencing financial burdens related to autism healthcare costs. 46% of parents need more help or information managing emotional and physical stress, and 40% need more help or information balancing work or family responsibilities. As mentioned before, siblings are also considered stakeholders. Similarly to parents, siblings also have a personal interest in the success of our interventions. Siblings may also be spending a lot of time with our clients at home. It is likely that they are also helping caregivers care for the client with autism. So again, the greater independence we can help our clients gain, the easier we'll be making the life for those stakeholders who are with the clients every day. For example, if you can teach a child with autism to independently use the bathroom, that means siblings or other caregivers who currently help them during this time will no longer need to. This also allows a freedom to the client to no longer have to rely on others to gain access to certain things, such as using the restroom. Siblings may also be included in social programs, so they are then directly affected by our treatments. Many clients who receive in-home therapy and have social programs that require the inclusion of peers have no one other than siblings to work on these social programs with. The last stakeholder that we will be discussing is the company. As previously mentioned, autism is expensive. Companies that you work for, whether it is for-profit or nonprofit organizations, will have a financial interest. Nonprofit organizations still need to make money in order to keep their doors open. Therefore, having effective treatments that keep insurance companies covering treatment is necessary. For-profit organizations may have more of a financial interest. In 2016, the autism treatment market was estimated at $1.85 billion in the United States. And in 2022, the autism treatment market will reach $2.23 billion. In addition, on average, an ABA center will gross about $821,000 per year. Question: who is not considered a stakeholder? A, the foster parent of a child with autism. B, the sister of a boy with autism. C, the neighbor of a child with autism. Or D, the company providing ABA services to a child with autism. On your homework sheet, fill in the following question: who is not considered a stakeholder? I'll now give you a few moments to get that filled in. The answer to the previous question was C. The neighbor of a child with autism is not considered a stakeholder. As previously mentioned, the stakeholders we've identified are those who are impacted by the success of a project. These include parents, caregivers, siblings, and the company you work for. On your homework sheet, fill in the answer C. Although you won't ever be conducting independent interviews, you might have opportunities to interact with stakeholders regarding the client, especially if you are working in home. Here are several miscellaneous tips that can help foster positive interactions with stakeholders when you do have them. Small talk can be used to break the ice initially and throughout the session occasionally if it fits. However, you want to make sure that you're not encouraging the stakeholder to believe that the session consists only of informal conversation or small talk. Small talk is fine as long as you focus the conversation on the services that you are providing. Praise and approval statements can be used at various points while talking with stakeholders. Praise and approval statements fit nicely into the session following cooperative behavior or effort on the part of the stakeholder. For example, thank you for letting me know the new toys that Kyle likes. That will help me a lot while I'm working with him today. Minimal verbals can be used, including okay, and I see, as indications to the stakeholder that you are being attentive. Such minimal verbal responses can be used continuously throughout the conversation. Body language includes things such as eye contact, smiling, head nods, and leaning slightly forward in your chair. These skills also help in convincing the stakeholder that you are actively listening and that you're absorbed into what is being said. You should refrain from making nervous movements, such as foot or finger tapping, staring, or rapidly shifting eyes around the room, in order to facilitate a more relaxed and comfortable interaction for the stakeholder. Speech tone and speed should reflect that you are comfortable in order to help the stakeholder feel more at ease. Some tips to keep in mind include: speak loudly and clearly enough so that the stakeholder does not have to strain to hear you. Speak slowly enough so that they can understand you. Give the stakeholder time to process what you are saying. Along the same line, avoid asking multiple questions in one breath. Stakeholders can only answer one question at a time, and if presented with multiple questions, they may get confused and not answer what you really wanted. To prevent this problem, think about what you want to ask before you ask it. If this doesn't work and the question still doesn't come out right, and you want to rephrase it, tell the stakeholder, "Let me rephrase that," and then ask your question again. Let the stakeholder know what is going on to avoid confusion. And it is also okay to pause occasionally and leave some silence. Don't feel uncomfortable with brief periods of silence. If you're really confused and need time to collect your thoughts, just tell the stakeholder. For example, it is okay to say, "Excuse me for a second while I collect my thoughts." Next, we will be discussing limits to communicating with stakeholders. While you want to build and maintain rapport with the caregivers and stakeholders, you also want to make sure to keep it within professional boundaries. To recap, you should actively avoid multiple relationships. If it is not possible to, you should disclose that information to your BCBA. A multiple relationship occurs when a psychologist is in a professional role with a person and, at the same time, is in another role with that same person, or at the same time is in a relationship with a person closely associated with or related to the person with whom the person has the professional relationship with, or promises to enter into another relationship in the future with the person or a person closely associated with or related to that person. So again, you should build rapport without going beyond professional boundaries. You can do this by keeping information more broad and avoiding specific details. For example, instead of saying, "I'm failing out of college and I'm going to have nowhere to live afterwards," you should instead say, "I'm thinking of taking a break from college and working on my professional career." You can also keep boundaries in place by making sure that interactions are within certain limits. So some examples, you should not go out to dinner with the family, complete extra sessions with them without the parent's knowledge, provide them your personal information, your address, phone number, unless you are supposed to for company reasons. Question: what concept does the following scenario violate? You are finishing a session in-home with a client, and the parent says, "Hey, I need to run to the grocery store. Would you be able to stay an extra hour to watch over Katerina?" A. Conflict of interest. B. Multiple relationship. C. Babysitting. Or D. Limit to confidentiality. On your homework sheet, fill in the following question: what concept does the following scenario violate? I'll now give you some time to get this filled in. The answer to the previous question was B, multiple relationship. By agreeing to stay and watch the child, you're now entering into two roles: technician and babysitter. So, what should you do instead? You should tell the mom that you are sorry and that you wish you could stay, but you have to follow your code of ethics and cannot perform outside of your duties of the technician. On your homework sheet, fill in the following answer: B. I'll give you some time to get that filled in. In addition to the previous pointers, you should also ensure that you have an open line of communication and respond to emails, texts, or calls from the stakeholders as soon as possible. If you have a change in schedule or have planned for a vacation or a few days off, you should make sure to tell them as far ahead of time as possible. Caregivers look forward to these services as they want to see progress being made with the client. By communicating ahead of time, both you and the caregiver can have adequate time to reschedule. You should also not agree to do things that you cannot actually do. For example, if a parent asks to fit in an extra session with their child at the end of the week, but you do not have adequate time to do so, you should be upfront about this. If you agree to work with the child or agree to any other responsibilities that you cannot keep, you will risk negatively impacting your relationship with the family. Additionally, you should never provide a diagnosis or medical analysis of a client. We are not experts in the medical area and should only provide behavior analytics services. While you may want to help the caregivers as much as possible, make sure not to answer questions or provide advice outside of your area of expertise. If the parents ask questions about future directions of treatment, scheduling parent trainings, or others, direct those questions to your BCBA supervisor. Do not attempt to answer them yourselves. Once again, providing inaccurate information to the caregiver could harm the therapist-caregiver relationship. Now we are going to watch several videos and discuss how the technician is doing communicating with the stakeholder.
Oh, so how was session today?
It was pretty good.
Good, good. Yeah, what did you guys work on?
The usual stuff.
Yeah. Sydney looks happy. Like, how's she been, doing good? Well, yeah. Okay, any updates on, problems or anything? No. Oh, okay, well, then I'll see you tomorrow's session, or are you still on time for 5 o'clock?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, well, guess, yeah, I'll see you then.
Okay.
Sydney's really excited.
Okay.
Okay, come on, sweetie. Come
Okay,
on.
bye.
Bye.
So, how did the technician do in the previous video? Throughout the interaction, her body language could be construed as rude. She was walking away from the stakeholder while the stakeholder was trying to communicate with her. At one point, she even turned away from her while communicating. She also did not engage in small talk or even actively avoided questions the stakeholder was asking about the client. If a parent is asking about the client's performance, we should not ignore their questions. Instead, we should provide them with objective answers, such as, she was able to complete the direction of wave 3 of the 10 times I asked her to wave, but only needed a model of me doing it to get it right every other time, instead of me having to help her completely do it. She's been making good progress compared to last session. Overall, the technician did not engage well with the stakeholder. Now we will watch another video.
Okay, I think we're all good with Sydney. She did a
Perfect.
really good job today. You know, she had some moments where she had some tantrums, but other than that, we did pretty good.
Good. Nothing too
Yeah.
stressful for you?
No, I mean, like, I know I told you earlier about my boyfriend and I, so, like, things are getting, like, way too crazy because we have to share a cat, and, like, things are getting weird, and, like, obviously, like, I want to keep the cat because, like, I have maternal instincts compared to him where he's, like, doesn't know how to take care of, like, a pot of rice. But, like, I just, you know, I know, like, haven't you been in that situation? Like, how's your relationship with her dad? Like, isn't it
Oh, we're good.
kind of difficult sometimes?
We're good.
Yeah, I just feel like, you know, that might be hard, and, like, I know that can be weird.
Yeah, I mean, you can just go home and relax, you know?
Yeah, no, that's totally true. I just love hanging out with you guys because you're, like, so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I gotta go take all of them on a walk.
Okay, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's gonna be so cute. We can walk together. Do you want to walk together?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Let's walk together.
Chit chat.
Yeah. She's so cute.
So how did the technician do in this video? In this video, the technician was not taking the stakeholder's cues that she wanted to end the conversation. You can see the stakeholder slowly backing away and the technician just continuing to get closer. It's important to be able to pick up on these social cues and not make those that we work with feel uncomfortable. The technician was also speaking very quickly. She breezed through the important talking points, such as how the client was doing, and then changed the subject to her personal life. In addition to this, the technician went far beyond her professional boundary and shared details of her personal life. This may blur the lines of technician and friend. Finally, hitting back on social cues, the technician persistently asked the stakeholder about her marital life, even though the stakeholder was being short with her answers. This can not only make the stakeholder feel uncomfortable, but if they were to answer and complain about the husband, the technician may have again overstepped and replied inappropriately, causing an even more uncomfortable situation with both the mother and the father of the client. Now we are going to watch one final video.
Oh, how was session today?
It was so good. Sydney had a lot of fun. We were super into Barbies today and Paw Patrol. So those were our two favorite things, if she's into that still. And then her procedures went really, really well. So I know Megan told you that she added imitation in, and we just started working on wave and top table and arms up. So those are our three things that we're working on.
So, like, I have some family coming over next weekend, and I've been telling them all about ABA and all the great progress she's making. Do you think, like, we could get her to wave to them by, like, next weekend?
You know, I don't really know. I can text Megan to ask her to reach out to you, and you can chat with her about it. But yeah, I'm not sure. I know about that one. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
Aw, well, I'm sad to see you go. Are you doing anything fun this weekend?
Just hanging out, relaxing.
Nothing crazy. crazy.
No, this week is a lot of kids, a lot of kiddos this week. So I'm just gonna hang out, maybe go to dinner with some friends, stuff like that.
Oh, so fun.
Yeah. What about you?
I don't know. We'll see what Sydney wants to do.
Yeah.
Probably have a relaxing evening.
That sounds good. Well, I'll see you next week when I come back to see Sydney.
Yeah, it's still on for Monday at 5.
How did the technician do in this final video? In this video, the technician did a great job. She kept small talk to a minimum. The stakeholder in this scenario even asked her about her weekend, but she kept it brief and appropriate. Her body language, compared to the other videos, was not too open, but also not standoffish. She kept an appropriate distance, interacting with the family pet, but did not make it seem like she was not paying attention. Lastly, she kept her interactions within certain limits. In the beginning, she did a great job covering the targets that she had worked on that day, and she was able to stay within her scope of competence when the stakeholder asked if the client would be able to waive by the following weekend. She didn't make any promises and referred the stakeholder to her BCBA for further questions. Overall, the technician did a great job communicating with the stakeholder in this scenario. Now let's cover how communication with parents can affect treatment. Caregivers have a unique insight into the client and can provide their unique perspective about the client's functioning, preferences, and behavioral history, which are all important aspects to effective treatment. By communicating effectively, you can gain valuable information, such as how the client is behaving at home, or if they have a change in interests or activities. If the child recently showed a lot of interest in a new movie character or activity or food, the parent can update you about this information. As we had previously mentioned, caregivers are with the clients the majority of the time. And since services cannot be provided 24/7, parents may be responsible for implementing interventions such as morning or nighttime routines, behavior reduction, and much more. Therefore, the greater buy-in that we have through effective communication with parents, the more likely it is that they will implement these interventions with fidelity, which in the end will benefit the client the most. Question: why is it important to communicate with stakeholders? A, we want buy-in. B, they need to be 100% involved for ABA to be effective. C, they can give us valuable insights. D, both A and C. Or E, none of the above. On your homework sheet, fill in the question, why is it important to communicate with stakeholders? I'll give you some time to get this question filled in. The answer to the previous question was D, both A and C. We want buy-in and they can give us valuable insights. If we can maintain a positive relationship with parents, we're more likely to get buy-in to the treatments that we are providing. This can result in the stakeholders implementing procedures when we are not around. They can also give us insights about what goes on when we aren't in session. On your homework sheet, fill in the answer D. I'll give you some time to get that filled in. This concludes our training on task list item F3, communicating with stakeholders. You will now take a brief quiz covering this material.